On October 29th this year, I'm going to turn 30 years. When I look back to my 25-year-old self or 20-year-old self, I realize that I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. I made a lot of decisions that were dumb. And if I were to take it as far back as 17 years or 16 years, oh, God help me. I was so foolish about a lot of things. But back then, I thought I was the wisest kid on the block. But I guess that's what life is all about. With each day that passes, we get to find out how little we know about this cosmos, this world, this earth that we live on, the environments that we live in, our very own selves, our personalities, our characters. And when we reflect on how we lived in the past, we see the holes, the mistakes in how we lived life. But my 17-year-old self thought he was the best kid, the wisest kid ever. Now, this is not to say that when I was young, when I was 25, when I was 20, 17, whatever, I didn't make some really important or wise decisions. I did. But the fundamental truth is that my thinking, I thought I was seeing the world in the most perfect way ever. I thought I was wise. I thought I knew everything that I was going into, but I didn't. That is the truth. Looking back now, I didn't. I didn't know a lot. In fact, I knew very little. What I knew about the world, about myself, was very little. I had very little experience. I didn't know a lot. That's my point. Maybe your life is different, but I wouldn't think so. I would think that you watching me or listening to me now, you would also look back to your life 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago and maybe even laugh because you realize how flawed your thinking was and how little you knew about yourself and about this world. But now that you're old, you're able to see that. And I think it's a thing of life. That's what life is about. And so this is not just some kind of appalling observation that will just cripple us and make us sad and depressed. We might actually be able to learn a thing or two from it. I'm going to share with you 3 things that I learned when I look back to my younger self. Number 1, when I look back to my 25-year-old self, my 20-year-old self, my younger self, the first thing that comes to my mind is humility. I need to be humble. It's just as simple as that. There is no other way to look at it. I feel so humbled because I did not know a thing. Sure, I did do some good things, but boy, I did make a lot of mistakes too. Think about this. If I look back to my 25-year-old self, 17-year-old self, and I'm able to say that, boy, I would not do that thing I did when I was young. Who is to say that when I'm 40, I wouldn't look back to this present time, my 29-year-old self or my 30-year-old self, and say the same? I think this is true for everyone. Look, if you're looking for a single reason why you should be humble in life, let this be your reason. Because when you are old, when you look back to your younger self, you're able to see better than you did when you were young. And so a little bit of humility would help you. Number 2, when I look back to my younger self, I think about respect. I think I need to respect the people who have walked the path that I'm walking now. In other words, the 30-year-olds, the 35-year-olds, the 40-year-olds. I think they deserve respect. They have been 30 years. I am now going to be 30 years. They have walked the path that I am about to walk. And you can apply this in a lot of other ways. If you're going to get married, but you need to have a lot of respect for married folks because you are now going to get married. For even a year, you want to respect them because you just got started. So when I think back to my younger self, I think about respecting others, respecting people, especially those who have been where I am. And although I'm making this about age, it's really not about how old a person is and how young a person is. It's just a thing of life. Look, if you're an adult and a child achieves a certain feat, and you in your younger year, say the kid is 17 years, when you were 17, you could not even imagine doing the thing that this 17-year-old kid has done. You need to be able to respect them and say, boy, you have done so well. My 17-year-old self would not have even thought of or conceived what you just did, and just pay them their respect. So it goes both ways. If you're young, you look at the older guys and you respect them and you say, I am now trying to walk the places that you have walked. Whether they were successful or not, they've still gone through it. The fact that they're still alive calls for some respect. And if you're old and a younger person does something, just bury your pride and respect them for what they've been able to achieve, because maybe your younger self would never have even imagined that, let alone put plans into place or in place to achieve what they have achieved. So it kind of goes both ways. Respect. Number 3, contentment. The Bible says that but godliness with contentment is great gain. First Timothy chapter 6, verse 6. I think one of the most important things in life, especially for young people, is to be content. When I look back to my past life, my younger life, and reflect, I don't get depressed for the mistakes that I made. Looking back to your younger self and seeing the holes and the flaws in the decisions you made and how you perceived and the things that you thought about life, it's not something that should get you depressed. If anything, it should make you look at the opportunities you have now and say, well, I did make a lot of mistakes, but now that I'm going to turn 30 years, I'm going to take advantage of the opportunities that I have in life and make the best out of them. Now, in order to do this, you have to be in a place of contentment. You have to be content with the things you have, with a little, let's call it good decisions, goodness you had in yourself when you were young. Yeah, fine, you couldn't make the best of the opportunities you had some years back, but that's okay, that's fine. You walked away with a couple and you're still alive. You can change things. I'm going to be 30 years. I want to be 40 and look back to my 30-year-old self and say, well, I did well. I minimized my mistakes, my errors. That's what life is about for the most part. You can't avoid errors in life. You can't be perfect at anything. Life and living it is mostly about minimizing your errors, reducing your regrets. You don't want to be 40 years and look back to your 30-year-old self and say, oh boy, I made a lot of mistakes. Well, I am reflecting into my 20s and into my teenage years so that when I'm in my 40s, I would be able to look back to my 30-year-old self and say, well, I tried, I did my best, I took advantage of a lot of the opportunities I had in life and I made the best out of them. Like I said, life is mostly about reducing your errors, reducing the regrets that you have. I don't want to be 40 years and be full of regrets and say, oh, I wish I had done this. Oh, I wish I had taken advantage of this opportunity. So when you reflect, don't be depressed. Be content with the life you have now, with the opportunities that are going to come your way, and simply say, I want to make the best out of them now so that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I wouldn't feel the same way that I feel when I look back to my 20-year-old self. That is, if you feel a lot of regrets when you look back to your 20s. And even if you don't, even if you did marvelously well in your 20s or in your 30s, whatever your age is, you still want to do more. The goal is to reduce the amount of regrets that you have in life. You don't want to be full of regrets when you are old. No. Nobody likes a life like that. So why don't you just strap up, look around you, embrace the challenges you have, and take advantage of the opportunities you have and just move on. Thank you for watching this. I love you.